Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from DeltaCX.com. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy and we do training. Check us out. And today is a micro lesson, and it was by popular demand from the previous micro lesson. Previously, we did setting up unmoderated research. We took a look at an unmoderated usability test, unmoderated card sort, and unmoderated tree test. And of course, the logical question was, how do we interpret these? And I said, I should probably schedule that. So I have put together pretty much the same things we looked at last time. So it'd be great if you saw that episode first. Check the micro lessons playlist on the YouTube channel, Delta CX, so that you can watch that one first to see how to set them up. And now we're going to see how to knock them down. Hi, Charlene. Good to see you here. Happy Wednesday, everybody. So, of course, join our Slack channel where we have almost 1,000 members now, though about 100 or so are active, deltacx.link/join Slack. And of course, the tip jar is always optional, but always appreciated, especially since today's episode cost me $120 to turn my UX Tweak account back on so I could show you the results of my last study. Boing. But I do it all for you guys no matter what. So let's take a look. And again, I'm not going to talk today about setting up these studies. I'm going to assume that you saw the previous micro lesson either live or in the archive. So let's pretend you know that. Kayleen, no, you lost money? Yes, I spent money just to do today's thing. I spend money on this stuff, guys. I don't know if you've noticed. So, yeah, I buy these videos. There's lots of things that cost me money in this world, but I love doing this so much that to me it's worth it, even if it is a financial loss, because it is damn fun to know all of you and to see you in the Slack channel and to be able to teach people. So let's press all the buttons. That will hopefully go to the right version of my screen. I'm working from my phone today. Let's see, that should be the panel that shows this. Oh, Kayleen. Oh, gosh. Thank you, Kayleen. Geez, I feel like I owe you money. Thank you, Kayleen. That's very sweet of you. Totally optional, everybody, but thank you. All the money that the YouTube channel makes, which so far this year has been about 500 American dollars, I reinvest in the channel. I buy videos and I buy wacky things and I send you people giveaways. So, you know, I'm not in this for the money, as you can tell from the channel not being monetized. So, all right. Thank you. All right, so let's start with the usability test. Remember, nothing here today is sponsored. I pay UX Tweak. I typically pay Optimal Workshop. Both of these accounts were shut off. I turned this one back on just for today. So let's take a look at what we get after we've run an unmoderated usability test. So to refresh you guys, this was an unmoderated usability test of an actual prototype of an e-commerce website. We had an A version and a B version. We were kind of comparing them against each other, but we also wanted to see how they did against themselves, since that's a usability test. We wanted to see if people could use it, understand it, see where it didn't work. And, I don't believe in just validating everything. I want to make sure that we're taking a good critical thinking look at our stuff. So this is UX Tweak, and I don't necessarily use all of the information they give back to me, but here's what they show me. We had 6 people complete this. And remember, for your first round of testing, we consider 5 to be a good way to go. We ended up doing 12, actually, because we had some groups. We had B2B and B2C, and we wanted 6 each. And then we programmed this or designed this study, as you saw last time, to do 3 people seeing the A page first and 3 people seeing the B page first. And that way we'd have some variation and people wouldn't just pick the first page they saw as their favorite. So 100% made it through the test. This is when we ran it back in June, which seems really long ago now. This is how long people took. Now, again, if this were like a time on task test, that could be a great piece of information for you. This type of visualization is called a box plot or a box and whiskers plot, and it usually shows percentiles of a quantity. In this case, we didn't care so much about time on task or the like. We were looking more at how they used different parts of the page and if they understood, if they're going to understand how to make it through that task. We didn't identify anything in the task as a failure, so there's no reason for the system to tell us there was a failure. We did give everybody 2 tasks. Again, we gave them the same task for page A and page B. And so each person got 2 tasks. Again, some people saw A page first, some people saw B page first. We only did this on desktop, so here's 6 people on desktop. And since our client only sells to the United States, we had set up the test to only allow people from the United States. We had a few people on Windows, a few people on Mac, and evidently one person on a Chromebook, which is a nice little mix of people, though everybody was in a Chrome browser, which again, didn't matter to us in this case. We had some different screen resolutions, which is groovy. Looks like we had everybody had a different screen resolution, so that's kind of neat. So that's some of the preliminary information that we get. Then we get the actual test takers themselves. And in this case, we had 6 people. And the system gives them cute little icons and numbers and whether or not we want to include them in the analysis. So any number crunching that UX Tweak does for us, should this person be included? And we wanted all 6, so they're all included. It tells you how long they spent, and you can see there's a bit of a variation. Some people spent 7 minutes, some people spent 18 minutes. And again, for us, this wasn't about time on task, so neither of these is better or worse than the other. It was more about what people did on the page and some of the feedback they gave us on the designs that we showed them that would help us understand stuff. Oh, hi, Krishna. Good to see you. So what we can do from here is we can then look at some of the analysis. So it'll show us some the general answers to the questions that we got. Here's some statistics on stuff. And again, for us, the statistics weren't important because this wasn't like a timed test or did they succeed or fail. It was really more of the qualitative aspect of this. I know you're thinking unmoderated, qualitative. Yeah, we really wanted to see the videos of the people using these pages and hear what they thought about it. So we weren't as hung up on numbers. Oh, Krishna subscribed. Thank you. I'm not looking at the overlay. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, for some reason, it didn't come up on my chat room above me. You can see Kayleen's super chat did, and the other one didn't. So thank you, Krishna. I really appreciate that. Debbie does not owe me money. I owe Debbie money. No, I probably owe Kayleen money. Well, it's even. Okay, so really to me, we can look at different things that people answered from the questionnaire. And, funny enough, we asked people which page, afterwards we asked people which page they liked more, and we had a split down the middle. Neither page was the clear winner, which we thought was really cool, especially since our client had already agreed to build both pages and live test them on their site, which we're hoping to do at the end of this month. And I'm recording this in September 2021. So I actually don't have the results from the client's live test, but I'm showing you the usability ones. So you can see some of the different questions that we asked and why did you prefer the one that you chose. So we got to see some of the feedback people gave about why they thought this was better. So this gives us a little bit more in the qualitative bucket. But to me, the most important thing was to watch these videos. So let me show you what it looks like, at least in UX Tweak. If I go into more details, I can see that this person had, of course, task 1 and task 2. and I can take a look at their questionnaire, and we have the questions we ask them after. So each task we asked, what did you like about page A, and what could be improved about page A? What did you like about page B? What could be improved about page B? And you can see this person must have seen page B first, because when we asked them what they liked about page B, they said, well, I like the other one better. And so this was really neat information for us. So these are all the answers to the questions. And this is a little bit more information about this person, where they're located. And we did ask them their name and their email, so I'm staying away from that screen so that you don't see that today. If you want to see the video, we have to press the play button. And I believe the videos work better in UX Tweak in Chrome. I am in Firefox, but I'm not going to play the videos because, again, this is private. But I do want to show you the way that UX Tweak shows this stuff. Let's take a look at this task, which is the one I wanted. Yeah, let's look at page B. And what's really neat here is you can see down here from the sound that this is the person talking. We did ask people to talk out loud, so you can see here's them talking. I can control the speed of this. I can share it with somebody. I can write some notes, which we didn't do. We wrote our notes separately. But one thing that I thought was really fun about UX Tweak was they kept track of every time the person clicked or every time the person typed on something. And I thought that was really neat. It really helped me just get a visual idea of what did people do. So even though it will light these up as I'm going through the video, it was kind of neat to see like that summary of some of the actions that people took. And I imagine that there might be somewhere in UX Tweak where I could possibly export that or run some stats on it, like how often did people click on a thing. I'm thinking maybe I can do that, but I didn't check because it wasn't important to this study. So again, UX Tweak, not sponsored. I paid them. They didn't pay me. They don't even know I'm doing this. But I did think that they had some nice features. You can also see from the yellow thing here that as they move their cursor around, it's highlighted, so it's easy for us to see. And you can also see, since this was pinned to the bottom in the actual prototype, you can see this person had kind of a short but wide screen. Maybe this was the Chromebook person? I don't remember. Yeah, here's their desktop, 1536 by 864. So that's quite wide. So anyway, ultimately, the way that I would interpret this test is, while some of the numbers were interesting, I'm not really looking at numbers or success failure. For these, I'm watching the videos. I'm watching what people do. I'm watching where they pause. I'm listening if they sigh or things like that. I'm looking at what they type on. I'm listening to what they say. So I'm not going to play this for you because, again, this is private and confidential and so on. But that is the way that I would interpret this. I would treat this as kind of an observational thing, and I would go by what I saw in the videos. We noticed that that nobody clicked on add your artwork, but the problem is we don't know if that was because they weren't interested in it or because we didn't specifically tell them to do it in the task. We were wondering if people would be curious and click on it, and nobody did. So we didn't know if that should have been part of the task. Kayleen said, do you still have my recording? I give you permission to play mine. I don't think so, Kayleen. But I also don't have vMix set up where it's going to pick up the sound. So thank you. I should have arranged this with you beforehand. But anyway, ultimately, if you haven't seen one of these before, these types of videos, it's really just someone, maybe even Kayleen. You know, you don't see them, you don't necessarily know who they are, but we hear their voices. Sorry, we don't see their cameras. Some companies do have people turn on cameras. I think I didn't do that here. And you ask them to think out loud and talk through their stuff. We actually had one person not talk at all. So you've got to be pretty good at the observational stuff to take a look at what they were doing and be like, okay, what are they doing here? And can I figure out where this might be going right or wrong for them when it's a cone of silence? But ultimately, I treat this as an observational study, and I watch people do things. I pause the video. I make notes about things that they did. I make notes about where they made a mistake or whatever. Grace says, can we do this with mobile apps? I think you can. Ultimately, this relied on you having a website where you can drop a a code snippet. So we used an actual prototype, but of course you could use an actual prototype with a code snippet on a phone. Because when we set this up, it said, is this going to be on desktop or mobile? So I think as long as somebody can get to this in a web browser, and of course you can emulate a fake app in a web browser if you want to, yeah, I think this could be mobile as well. Good question, Grace. Kayleen says, I'm impressed by the amount of qual you can get out of unmoderated results. I agree. And that's why I will often do unmoderated usability testing, especially as my first round, just to kind of knock it out as a kind of first pass at QA. I like to say testing is the QA of UX. We are looking for bugs and room for improvement. I do not consider it an attempt to validate my work and tell you it was all great. We definitely found things from this that people, that we did change, but I will say that this was one of the best tests I've ever run from the perspective of there wasn't a lot for us to change. We really did a great job on the designs. For that, I thank Larry Marine, Elijah Claude, and Pier Mario, my boyfriend, did one of the designs too. So, and I helped a little bit. So, so thanks to the team that worked on the designs, and it just went really well, and the clients are excited. So ultimately, this turns into an asynchronous observational study. Now, again, the downside to it being unmoderated is you don't get to ask that person, hey, tell me more about why you chose that, or tell me more about this, or what did you see here, or whatever we're asking them. So we have to make sure our tasks are clear, and we have to hope that we get a person who talks out loud, though out of our 12, one didn't, which was just awkward. You're yelling at the screen and you're like, it says talk out loud. Why? We did pay everybody. So even though that person's result was a little weird, we sent everybody their money. Any questions about unmoderated website usability testing before I move on to card sorting? We'll also do card sorting and tree testing today. And again, not an ad for UX Tweak, but you can see from the inside of my account that you can do card sorting and tree testing in UX Tweak, which I have not done. You can do preference tests. You can do 5-second tests. I haven't done their surveys. I've just done their website testing. So in the future, I might try them for other things. But again, it's new to me. So I may or may not like it, and that's okay. Let's see. So any questions about unmoderated usability testing? Again, you can use a real website. I use Acture prototypes. Not sponsored. I'm just an Acture fan. Kayleen says, I remember the screen not being clear that it was recording. I think I wondered aloud, is this recording me right now? Hello. Yeah, I am not sure if that's something I could have set up better in the text of the testing, or, we would have to set up a test and play with it to see if it is clear. But again, that's why we pilot the study. Michelle Ronson talked about that recently in one of our shows, piloting the study. And thanks to Kayleen and Ralitza, who were our pilots for this study. And we checked it out. Grace says, thank you for this. No, thank you, Grace. Thank you for coming. I do it for you. So again, even though I'll move on to card sorts, if you think of a question or you come in late and you have a question about unmoderated usability testing, please let me know. I'm happy to answer that in our session today. And just remember that to make this easier for ourselves later, we did this as 2 tests. We built one and then we duplicated it, and we called one B2C, and we sent that to our B2C customers, and we called one B2B, but they're identical. Now that does mean that we did have to crunch the numbers separately and deal with them separately, but then we could bring them together in our analysis and say, aha, across these 12 people, here's where the preferences were. And it was all over the place. It was totally split. The client was so heartbroken. They were like, we wanted to see one of them win. And even Pier Mario, I think, was like, do over. But there wasn't a clear winner. Kayleen says, how do you determine what's a bug and what's part of the study? How do you mean that? Do you mean a bug in in one of our participants, in them saying or doing something weird, or part of the study. And by the way, many of these people, especially if you get them from panels, like we got these people from usertesting.com, definitely not sponsored. They're used to taking tests before and working with prototypes. So you'll even hear people who will say like, I'm not able to click this, but maybe that's just the prototype. They tend to be familiar with that. Kayleen says, yeah, what if one of the participants does something weird? Sometimes it's great to see somebody do something weird because that could be something they might do on the real website. I love to see people do weird things because it gives me an idea of, do I think this is just a super fluke, or could this person be representative of a larger audience who might do something like this? Now, at that point, that's my conclusion. That's my interpretation. I could be right or wrong about that, and that comes with experience. But, who's an outlier? Hard to say, especially when you're dealing, but with 12 people, you can start to see who's an outlier. Kayleen, you recently did some research. You spoke to, I think, 15 people. You can tell who might have been an outlier and who was more of the center of the bell curve. So when somebody does something weird, depending upon what it is, I might still take it into consideration. Well, for example, I'll give you an example of something weird. We did a card sort for an e-commerce client years ago, and we asked them where they would expect to find like directions to the store. And it was like, where would you expect to find our newest face cream? And somebody picked like the About Us page. And I'm like, no, you gave up. You would not expect to find face cream on the About Us page. And of course, they were the only person out of like 32 people to say that the face cream was going to be on the About Us page. And so we decided that was an outlier. But sometimes we see an outlier and we go, oh, maybe we should put the latest face cream on the About Us page. It really depends. Sometimes you see the outlier and you go, wait a minute, that's not a bad idea. And sometimes you see the outlier and you go, yeah, that's an outlier. Aitan says, what do you do when there's no clear winner? Start over? No, because this isn't a race. It doesn't, for our purposes, it didn't matter if A or B won, only because our client had already agreed to a project where we were going to take A and B, build both of them, and put them on their site in experimental percentages. So in a few weeks, we expect that X% of the people actually visiting their real site are going to see our A page, and X% are going to see our B page, and big percent are going to see the current page. So it's a bit of an ABC test, and we're going to see how things do. So the client had already agreed to build both. And I think we're going to build a third version as well. That's like some weird combination of the two because they were such winners. So if this had relied on one being a clear winner, we normally go with the best of each. We say, well, you know what? This part of A page really worked for people. They loved this. And this part of the B page was something people felt like was really missing from the A page. So very often our winner is a C page that takes the best of both. So I would say that is often what I end up doing. I don't usually say, well, A took a less time, so it's a winner, or B had fewer clicks, so it's a winner. I will normally take the best of A and the best of B if they're variations of each other and make a C. New subscribers. Oh, thank you, Kayleen. I don't have I can't see the overlay. The overlay happens on some other screen that, it happens in vMix. I would have to have this on to see the overlay. I don't see it. You see it. So thank you to the new subscribers. I'm sorry I don't see it in this version of my screen. I feel very badly about this. I don't even know if I can open it up and see. Now it's going to make me sign in. Now this is boring for everybody. I should have done this before. YouTube. Sorry, but I want to thank everybody appropriately. Let's see. Dominique, thank you. Thank you. And Anita and Chang, yes. So thank you to everybody. Sorry I'm not seeing the explosions and the sounds and stuff, but thank you. Let's see. Charlene says, I would like to learn how you do coding and tagging. Important information. My coding is messy. Did we do that? Was that already a micro lesson where we did the coding and tagging? Someone help me. Is that in the micro lessons playlist already? Kayleen says, along with people who are used to doing usability tests, does that make the results inaccurate compared to real users? Well, remember, it's up to you for recruiting. You can decide in your plan, hey, we want to recruit from a pop-up on the website that's going to take our current customers. But we really wanted people who had possibly never seen this client's website before, so we went with the panel. We went with the outside people. But you can pick, depending upon what you're testing, sometimes you want the existing customers and sometimes you want the fresh eyes who haven't seen the site before. I know some people are worried that these people are professional testers, but really you can tell from the videos that you get back that, sure, they're familiar with UX Tweak and usertesting.com and Userlytics and Validately, and which is now UserZoom Go and stuff like that. But like, they've never seen this page before. This is totally new to them. So they just mostly know they're supposed to give it a shot and talk out loud. I don't think of them necessarily as professional testers. And especially they usually get like $10, which is like €8. So, there isn't like a giant incentive for them to be super shitty. Yeah, for somebody tell me if I already did that in micro lessons about coding and tagging. I thought we had when we talked about Dovetail, but you tell me. So I'm going to move on, but these are great questions. Keep them coming. Kayleen says, I don't see qual coding on DCX. During our fake project, we went from observations to infinity diagram. Okay, I'll make a note of that. Coding, tagging, I really feel like we did that. Hold on, let's... YouTube. By the way, YouTube has me all wrong on this account, so disregard what it's recommending to me. It's recommending myself to me. It's recommending what we're doing right now to me. Thank you. Delta CX coding. Yeah. Note-taking, coding, affinity diagramming. Try watching that one and see if that gives you what you're looking for, and then let me know if it doesn't. So try that. Let's talk about card sorts. So when last we left off, I talked about setting up a card sort where we had people in a workshop where I was teaching aspects of things, doing a card sort from the Apple website, just as an example. And you can tell from my iPhone 11 and iPhone 8 that this is an old version of the Apple website, but it's still a great practice way to go and to show people card sorts. So I took some of the things off the apple.com website from what might be 2018, 2019. I just picked 15 things so that they didn't have to card sort 30 things. And so it's MacBook and iMac, Apple Books, Keynote, iPad, iMovie, iCloud, iPhone 11, iPhone 8, Apple Watch, AirPods, accessibility, battery information, Apple Arcade, and Apple Pencil. And so what were the results? Now, we talked last week about what is a card sort and how do we set it up. Now I'll show you the types of results that I get from Optimal Workshop. Again, hashtag not sponsored. You don't have to use Optimal Workshop. Of course, UX Tweak does it. Lots of people do card sorts. You can do this however you want. So these are all of my participants. I can say whether or not they should be included in the analysis. I did ask people some questions here, and this was just for age and do you want to give me some comments on this? And so people made comments. And of course, the filtering is like only show me results for people who were in this age group. I think that's what the filter does. Right. So it filters out all the other age groups if you wanted to do that. So up to you. If I hit refresh, will it undo that filter? Okay, good. So no. How do I turn off that filter? Does anyone see filter on, filter off? That's strange. Oh, here they are. They're chips up here. Boo, boo. I didn't even see that. All right. All right. Who was I just talking to about chips? Oh, thank you, Fun with Sarah. Good to meet you. Thank you for subscribing. Super appreciated. And then, of course, we have the cards. Now, the first thing that Optimal Workshop shows me is my card on the left, how many different categories it ended up in, and all the categories. Now, remember, this was an open card sort. That means people could sort it into whatever categories they wanted. How many people participated? We have 24 people who ended up putting accessibility into 18 different categories. That starts to make this really hard to interpret, because where does accessibility go? Now, the reason why there's so many categories is because I set it up so that people could name their own categories. So that's why barely no two people named their categories the same. One person called it information. One person called it useful information. One person called it data. One person called it miscellaneous. Someone else called it other. You can tell from the things they name it where they think it goes, or that they really don't know where it goes. So this is good information, and it informs what I do, but this usually isn't the page that I spend the most time on in Optimal Workshop, even though it's fun to go through these and get a sense of where people put each of the cards. We also have the categories. So these are the categories that our people created. Somebody created a category called question mark, which tells me they did not know what to do with this. So only so much I can do with that. Somebody made a category called accessibility and put accessibility in it. Okay. But here we have accessories. And for the most part, you can see people put in AirPods, Apple Pencil, Apple Watch. Okay, now we're starting to see some patterns here. We can see that people categorize these things as accessories to other Apple devices. So this is starting more accessories. Now, somebody threw Keynote into accessories. I'm not sure that I would necessarily go for that, but I can tell from the patterns, Apple Pencil, Apple Watch, AirPods, over and over for many people appear to be accessories. Now I can see we've got apps, devices, software, so we've got some patterns here. Apple software, but then this person put in battery information. So again, I find that when I'm doing the card sort stuff and the tree test stuff, even though Optimal Workshop has done a lot of crunching for me, there's still a lot of manual work that I do to take a look at this and try to interpret it. So here's apps and services. Okay, so I could take a look at these and see where there might be some patterns appearing. Is there a pattern? Well, they both put iMovie in here, and they both put Keynote in here. I don't think I would think of pencil. We thought of pencil as an accessory, and you're right. You're thinking it right now. Deb, you wrote the word accessory here. Yeah, that's a terrible clue, and that would be an example of where I have skewed this for people, but of course that's part of what I teach in my workshop. Kayleen says, this overwhelms me. It can be overwhelming, but this is something I will normally look through to see if I notice some patterns. Ultimately, there are other places where I spend more of my time. I do not hang out much in the standardization grid, but I do hang out in the similarity matrix. And what Optimal Workshop does in the similarity matrix is it starts grouping things in pairs to show you where there tended to be, you could even say, affinity between things in pairs. Dominique says, out of topic question, where can I submit a boot camp for review? Too late. We did 2 shows on boot camps. I'm probably not going to do another. Episode 110 and episode, what was it, everybody? 126? 127? I think I looked at 50 boot camps and online courses and university degrees. Check. There. Thank you, Dominique, and thank you for being a new subscriber and joining in. So, Kayleen, hopefully this is less overwhelming, but you can start to see, oh, you watched both already. Okay, well, maybe post it to the education channel on Slack. In the Slack universe, we have #education, and that might be a good place to post a boot camp and see if the people in Slack have heard of it or know about it or have any experience with it and all that. Kayleen says, oh, Deb, are boot camps allowed to be submitted to the reaction box? Preferably not, but you certainly can send it into the reaction stream, deltacx.link/reaction. Every Friday is a reaction stream. I'm trying to not fill them with boot camps. I'm hoping y'all have learned how to assess the boot camps yourself. That was the whole point of those 2 shows, how to assess them yourself. You don't need me. Kayleen, how does this look to you? So this helps us a little bit more with the affinity between 2 things. So for example, super strong affinity, pretty much 100%. iPhone 11 and iPhone 8 were grouped by 100% of the participants. So we know there's a strong affinity between these 2 things, and they probably would go together in somewhere in our hierarchy. Kayleen says, oh yes, this matrix is less overwhelming, but I'm not sure I understand it. So again, here, let's see how Optimal Workshop describes it. This is for strong pairings and potential groupings. They have a little video on it, but again, the idea is it's the affinity between 2 things. So for example, here is the affinity between MacBook Pro and iMac Pro. 95% of people grouped these together, but you can see only 37% of people thought iPhone 8 went with iPad. So they must think that iPad possibly goes with something else. But when we check down iPad, does it have stronger affinity with something else? Now, all these numbers are kind of low. So, where does iPad go? We'd have to dig into some of our other information. AirPods and Apple Watch seem to go together a lot, and Apple Pencil and AirPods went together a lot. And again, depending upon your vision abilities, you might see that the darker the blue is, the more these things go together. And in some cases, it's 0. 0 people said Apple Watch goes with iCloud. Kayleen says, to be more specific, I'm not understanding the logic behind why things are in the order they're in the staircase. Oh, Kayleen, that actually doesn't matter. That's a great question. The order doesn't matter. It's more about matching up these pairs. So for example, this box here says, how does iMac Pro match up with accessibility? And the answer is nobody grouped those in the same group, so they probably wouldn't end up in the same group in your hierarchy. But whereas here we see a lot of affinity, Apple Books and Apple Arcade and iMovie, iMovie and Keynote, we can see from these pairs, now we have a group. Apple Books, Apple Arcade, iMovie, and Keynote seem to go together because they've got a strong affinity. iCloud, a little bit weaker affinity. So does it go with these others? We have to think about that. As these scores are dropping, we have to decide, are they part of that group or are they part of another group? But when I see some of these strong affinities, I start to think, okay, to our users, these things go together. And this, for example, is why I had a negative reaction to what was going around on LinkedIn and even around our own Slack universe was like, hey, we're doing a card sort for a website that's a food pantry. Come fill out our card sort. Well, hold on. I'm not the target audience for a food pantry. Why should I fill out a card sort on a food pantry? This now looks back at recruiting. We want to make sure food pantry website users do the card sort because what's their mental models? What's their perceptions? How do they group these things? That's what we need to know, not how Debbie does it. I just currently have no need for a food pantry website, but I care about the people who do. So we have to recruit the right people. It's not enough to just send people a card sort and get the card sort done. It's not a checkbox off a list. We want to make sure we've recruited the right people to do this. So this diagram helps us find pairs, and then pairs grow into little groups, especially over here with Apple Books, Apple Arcade, iMovie, and Keynote. These seem to go together. Batteries seem to go with accessibility, but if we look back at the previous page, it was more from a sense of, I don't know what to do with these 2 things. People tend to group them together as like things they didn't know what to do with. So that doesn't mean you'll put them together in your hierarchy. That's why we have to look at all of the pieces of the puzzle here. So we can see some strong affinity here between some of the devices. iPad is a little bit We're not sure. It's got some okay affinity with the iPhone 8 and some okay affinity with the Apple Watch. So we would have to think about where do these things go? Yet earlier it looked like Apple Watch was going to end up in more of an accessories bucket. Here in this diagram, it looks like it kind of goes more with AirPods. So again, this is why this type of analysis isn't a 2-hour job. You definitely have to make a lot of notes, draw some diagrams for yourself, maybe even make a Miro board and start moving these around. I'm not going to say there's one right way to do it. This is how I do things, but I'm looking for how our users perceive these things and where they perceive these groups. Because ultimately, we're often doing a card sorting for some sort of taxonomy or hierarchy or information architecture or website navigation. And in this case, our sample is website navigation. If we don't group things into logical buckets, people are going to get to the website navigation and not know where to find things. Our tree test helps us with that, and that's coming up next. But let's talk about some of the other things that Optimal Workshop shows in case these diagrams speak more to you. Now you've got the Dendrograms, which was a word that Dr. Nick dropped in yesterday's office hours. These are dendrograms, and the idea here is that, again, Optimal Workshop is crunching some of this stuff for you. They're saying if you had 30 or more people, we'll show you the absolute factual relationships. If you didn't have up to 30 people, our system is going to actually make some assumptions for you. So again, it's up to you which of these you put more weight in. This is the actual. So again, we can take a look at this and we can see iPhone 11 and 8 tended to go together very strongly, and that kind of later on in the chain, they met up with iPad, MacBook Pro, and iMac Pro. We can see this from the way that this is drawn. These kind of tree branches come together, which are your dendrograms, and so you can see how these come together and start to form a tree. So you can almost see how you might have a devices category, and there's maybe iPhone is a subcategory, and you've got your 8 and your 11 and something else, and maybe iPad is its own thing because it's a tablet, and then maybe MacBook Pro and iMac Pro are that. So remember, you're building out a hierarchy. It might have multiple levels. It might not just be devices, all 5 things. That's up to you. You have to interpret this, all the different screens, and put this together and say, would people expect to see devices and then every device? Or would people expect to see devices and then a sub breakdown and then things? So I can't tell you for sure, but again, that's how we end up using a tree test to check our work. So here you can see another visualization of where things tended to be grouped together, and if they kind of met up later through people's groupings of things with other things. Because again, a card sort ultimately is about organizing and grouping things. So these are dendrograms. Again, totally up to you whether or not this feels like it makes sense or if it's overwhelming. Next, we have participant-centric analysis. If I remember correctly, this is one that I glance at but don't necessarily use a lot. And the idea here is, once again, we can hit the question mark and have Optimal Workshop explain it. We look at your participant responses, we compare them to each other. We try to look at 3 different responses that agree strongly, and this works best when you have 30. So again, this is Optimal Workshop trying to crunch your stuff and say, you know what? We tended to see iPhone show up with the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 8 showed up together, and people tended to name this category iPhones or phones. Hey, we tended to see Apple Books, Keynote, iMovie, iCloud, and Apple Arcade grouped together, and people tended to give them names like apps or software. So I think this one is a helpful one also because, again, it's trying to crunch this for you. Kayleen says, is the tester supposed to fully understand what each card name means? Yes, hypothetically, you would be working with potential or current or archetypal customers or users of whatever this is, and you assume that they understand what this is. I thought maybe we would have some people in the workshop who were not Mac users, so they might not know what Keynote is, they might not know what iCloud is, and that's why I gave these little explanations. But of course, in the scheme of things, I wouldn't normally give these explanations because they might lead people, but because I used this more as a teaching tool for card sorting, I didn't mind doing that just to help the people in the room learn it and get to know it. But yes, you do assume that the person using this will understand what these are, but it's certainly the case where sometimes people don't. Maybe people saw accessibility and they had no idea what that meant, so they had no idea where to put it, and very often it got put in the question mark box. But you can see how something like this is starting to help us out by showing us people called this phones. Here, people called this, here's accessibility and battery. They went together. They had a high affinity, but people are like, other? Question mark? They just don't know what to do with these things. So we might have to figure that out ourselves if we don't see anything super helpful from the audience. So this is an example of your PCA. And then your 3D cluster view, I have to admit, I can't really make sense out of. It looks like a fun video game, but I don't know what to do with it. Wow. Trippy. Yeah, this might help somebody. I have to admit I haven't really figured out what this does, so I haven't really done it. Kayleen says, I would definitely rely more on optimal workshops, pre-crunched results. Is that lazy? I don't know how someone can have the time to manually go through everything. I agree with you. I mean, to me, this is why we pay an optimal workshop or a UX tweak, because they're going to make setting it up easy and they're going to make interpreting it easier. Recently, I saw somebody who didn't have the budget to use one of these, and they ran card sorts where they had people in a Miro board move stickies around, and now they're trying to figure out like what the results are. They have to completely do that in their heads and manually or in Excel or I don't even know what. So to me, these are worth what you pay for them, even though I know not everybody has the budget for them. These can feel expensive for some people, but to me, it's the amount of time it saves me, take my money. Kayleen says, can you double click one of the cluster shapes? Wow, I can, Kayleen. Thank you. So yeah, we double clicked a cluster. So again, just another visualization. I don't know what the shape means. So I have to admit, this one I am not as familiar with, but ultimately if this means something to you or if this helps you interpret it, hooray, it's here and you didn't pay extra for it. So that's card sorting. I know we're running a little bit low on time. I'm going to move to tree testing, but if you have questions on either thing, please do ask. All right, let's take a look at the tree test that I normally do in my workshops to talk about tree testing. Again, this uses the Apple website from 2018, so it's a little bit outdated, but this is what the website in 2008, this was some of what the Apple website in 2018 was. So you had Mac, and then you have Learn, Applications, more Mac, which is like miscellaneous if you ask me, and Support. And under Learn, you have all of your products. Now, I thought that was weird because when I think of products or devices or something like that. I don't think of Learn. But this is the way Apple had it. Then they had Applications, which were a lot of their software. And then they had more Mac, which to me sounds like miscellaneous. Then they had iPad, Learn, Accessories, Applications, more iPad, Support. Then they had iPhone. You can see what year this was. This was iPhone 10 or X, however you like to think of it. So this was the tree that I built. Yes, this took me an hour or two to put in. It sucked, but I put all these in by hand. I built out my tree with my top level, my second level, my third level. I had recreated that Apple website navigation so that now we can do our tree test. And remember, the tree test is all about building the tree, the hierarchy, the sitemap, or whatever it may be, and then giving people a task to find something. And the first click test takes a look at what's the first thing they click on to see if they're going in the right direction, which may not be in the tree. It could be on a page. But the tree test says, can they find, if they were going through our website navigation, could they find where this task or information or whatever is? So, as you saw last time, the tasks were written to be a little bit slippery, which was part of the workshop that I was running. I had a little slipperiness in my workshop, which I talked about last time. I'm getting a blank page, y'all. Did it log me out? Help. Am I still on the interwebs? Studies. Delta CX. Video course. Okay, we're back. Okay, so let's take a look at the results. So in this case, we had 24 people complete it, 5 people started but didn't finish. People generally took about 3 minutes because I only gave them 2 tasks, so this went pretty fast. Many people were in the United States, some were in India, some were in Canada. Tasks were 75% successful, and there was 31% directness. Now, we're going to need to talk a little bit about success and failure. We started talking about this in the last show, but let's spend more time on it now, even if I have to run a little bit late today. So first of all, to me, the only thing that is a success here is a direct success. So even though Optimal Workshop tells you 75% was a success, I would tell you I don't agree with that number. I treat an indirect success as a failure. Now let's talk about what direct and indirect are. And let's go back to our tree to use an example of this. If we give somebody this tree and we say, hey, find where I can find the, what are some of these things? iPad accessories. What's under here? Here it is, Apple Pencil. If I said, hey, find the Apple Pencil. Let's say somebody wasn't that familiar with Apple products, and the first thing they did was they went to iPhone. And they said, iPhone, learn. Oh, I don't see an Apple Pencil here. I must be in the wrong place. Let me go back. Okay, let's try iPad, and then let's try accessories. So, and then they go, oh yeah, Apple Pencil. Okay, found it. Now, what would happen there is this system would say that was an indirect success because they didn't get it. They weren't going in the right direction at first. They came back and then they found it. And so that would be an indirect success. A direct success was somebody knew exactly where that was, or they were just highly confident in what they were doing. They went straight to the quote unquote right answer. And again, the right answer may or may not be the right answer. We may have put stuff in the wrong place, and the tree test will help us see that. So the direct success means people confidently found this thing where you put it. So there's a good match there between what you thought the user would do and what the user did. The indirect success to me is a failure. People went in another direction first, realized that wasn't right, and then went back and went somewhere else. So to me, that's still a failure. We might still need to fix our tree, our hierarchy or information architecture to do a better job to match the mental models and perceptions and groupings of the user. Of course, failures means that whether it was direct or indirect, people did not make it to the answer you designated as the right answer. They ended up somewhere else in the tree. So how direct were people? 31%. To me, this is a measure of confidence. This is, did people go straight to the right answer, or did they kind of meander or backtrack? So that's like a low confidence thing, which tells me this probably isn't a good tree and it needs some work before we release it to the public. Kayleen says, if you were to conduct unmoderated card sorts and tree tests today, would you record the participants' audio to get their think alouds? Well, funny enough, the last card sort that I did some months ago, we actually did the identical card sort, moderated and unmoderated at the same time. We had 52 people do it unmoderated, and then I did 12 moderated, which means I took people into Optimal Workshop, they shared their screen, they did their card sorting and whatever, and then I spoke to them about why did they group things that way. And that's where I learned a lot of qual stuff. What you're probably noticing here is that it's really hard to get the qual in the card sort and the tree test. We don't have videos of them doing this. You would have to set that up as almost like a usability testing thing where it's like, we're going to take you to a website and record you doing this thing, think aloud. But otherwise, they just go to the website, they fill this out, and they answer some questions and they leave. So there you go. Charlene says the user might try 3 to 4 before they find the right thing, and that would be counted as an indirect success. Yes, Charlene is right. And that's where I remind people of the 4 horsemen of bad UX. Registered trademark me. And that means people might be frustrated, confused, disappointed, and distracted. That is still a negative user experience that we don't want them to have. So we would want to fix this hierarchy or information architecture before it goes to the public. Remember, the more people fail or the more things they do it indirectly, the more you have to fix your stuff. We don't come away from a test like this and go, people are idiots, but they'll figure it out. That is not the right thing to say. The right thing to say is, hey, we didn't make the best tree possible. We're seeing some high failure rates here. People are clearly confused. Kayleen says, is there a rule of thumb for high enough success rate? I don't have a rule of thumb. I am looking for very high direct success rates. I can't say that there's a particular number I'm looking for, but when anything that isn't a direct success to me is room for improvement, is something that I can improve about this structural design or information architecture. Kayleen says, I feel like unmoderated card sorts and tree tests with recorded audio would generate tons of qual without a decrease in quant. You can certainly do that. You can combine these things. Over in UX Tweak, you can say, I just want to record sessions with people or something like that. I imagine you can find a way to combine these. I have not tried that, but I think that's a neat idea that is worth trying. So hopefully everybody understands the direct and indirect, and the success and failure are based on the answer or answers you told Optimal Workshop were correct. So it's comparing against that, because when you do the setup, which we talked about last time, you say, this is the right answer. If people don't end up on this thing, it's not the right answer. And then, of course, if you allow people to skip certain of the tasks in the thing, some people skip it immediately and some people poke around and then skip it. I10 says, how do participants get the trees or cards? Do they have to log into Optimal Workshop? No, they're given a URL. There's a URL that they can go to, and it just says, hi, you're going to do a test, and here's how it works. And now get started and drag these cards around and look at this tree test. So they don't have to have an Optimal Workshop account. They don't have to log in. Same for UX Tweak. You didn't have to have an account. Only the people setting up or interpreting the tests have to have an account. Oh, thank you, E, for the super sticker. Thank you. Cool to you too. Thank you. All right, so let's take a look at analysis of tree tests because I love this stuff. Now again, UX Tweak does tree tests too. I haven't tried one yet, so I don't know if their crunching of things, thank you, E, is better, worse, same. And that's why it's always good to investigate tools, take advantage of their free trials, and see how you like setting stuff up and see how you like the information you get on the other end. So again, take advantage of these free trials. So I gave these people 2 tasks. One was You're curious about AirPods for your iPhone. Now, you might remember from last time that question was specifically written to mess with people. It was part of my workshop lesson about writing bad questions and leading questions. So this is a leading question because it makes people feel like AirPods are going to be found as some sort of sub thing of iPhone when actually they're under music. So what I did here was I purposefully did that to make people go the wrong direction. That's how you get so many indirect successes and total failures. And you can see 0 direct successes. 0 of the, 24 people who did this said, oh yeah, I know exactly where this is. Music, AirPods. Now again, this was the Apple site in 2018 or 2019. They have since changed it. And in fact, we can even see this. So where would, so I'm getting Italy, but okay, so where would iPods be? I'm sorry, not iPods, AirPods be now? That's tough. I don't immediately see something up here that says AirPods to me, but it's something I could use with a Mac. I could use with an iPhone. I could use with music. I could use with TV. Where does it go? And that's where we have to worry about information architecture and good website navigation. So could it be under iPhone? It's under iPhone. Now, it didn't used to be here when I first built the old tree test. Could it be under Mac? Maybe it's under Mac accessories. Eventually. Okay, so not totally clear from the hierarchy, but yes. Is it under music where it was originally? Yes, it is. So you can see that, funny enough, after I did this tree test and a lot of my workshops, Apple changed it. So I don't know if they ran their own test or somebody attended my workshop. I can't take credit for this, but you can see what they did. Remember, when you're building site navigation, if you have something, especially a new product or a popular product or a product that can be used for multiple uses or audiences, you don't have to only put it in one place in your information architecture. Here you saw it in 3 places, and to me, that's the right thing to do because users' mental models will tell us they think of it with their Mac, they think of it with their phone, they think of it as listening to music. Charlene says, can a tree test be done by using a prototype, but the results won't be the same? Well, remember, a tree test is done by showing people a totally naked hierarchy. They don't see a website. They don't see a prototype. They literally just see something that looks like this, like expand this, expand this. They pretty much just see this. So it's undesigned, it's naked, it's out of context, and it's just, can you find where on this site you would do this thing? So super question. It's not with a prototype or a web page. A tree test is just a naked thing. If you wanted to show people a web page or a prototype, you'd probably do the first click test, which I generally don't do. So going back to our results, and I've clicked the wrong thing already, and my tree test is not loading again. Okay, here we go. So take a look at how people did. Nobody went directly to the right answer. 19 people went the wrong way, and then eventually came back to what we said was the right answer, which at the time was the only place on the Apple website that talked about AirPods. One person just gave up. One person poked around and gave up. 2 people went straight to the wrong answer. 2 people went in a roundabout way to the wrong answer. And here's how much time people spent, but this is also a number I look at, 36 seconds. If you're not sure how long 36 seconds is, set a timer. You will not believe how long 36 seconds is. Excuse me, I have to remove a spam comment from YouTube. Thank you. Gone. That's really long. That to me is also a sign of 4 horsemen. People are frustrated. They're confused. They're not sure. They can't find this thing. I would like to see a much lower number than 36 seconds. Do I have a number in mind? No. It doesn't have to be 3 seconds. It doesn't have to be 7 seconds. Remember, some people have cognitive or memory or other issues that make them move through things more slowly. I don't want to penalize them for that. But 36 seconds seems like a long time to say, where would you find? And we just did this ourselves. Where would we find it? If we went back to the Apple homepage and we started this adventure again, and we said, okay, here, so let's run a timer. I've got a timer, utilities, timer, go. Okay, I'm on the Apple website and I'd like to find, oh, hold on, it didn't give me a fresh timer. Here we go. Okay, I'm on the Apple website and I want to find AirPods. I think I would use them with my iPhone. Where would I find AirPods? iPhone. AirPods, done. 11 seconds. That to me sounds pretty good. But again, I don't have an exact number in mind. I only know that 36 would have been long. That was 3 times what it just took me. E says, why don't you do first click tests? Because I prefer the tree test. I like to see if people can find exactly where they're going. The first click test tells us, are they headed in the right direction? But I feel I would rather do, can they find the thing where they would complete their task? So time taken to me is a clue of how frustrating, confusing, disappointing, or distracting this is. Welcome back, Four Horsemen. Again, success. I don't agree with Optimal Workshop's view of success. To me, this is a 0% success. And so I just use these numbers over here. I don't go by this one. And directness isn't as important to me because nobody got it right anyway. Here's my second question. You play guitar and sing. You're looking for Logic Pro recording software. In this case, it's Mac Applications Logic Pro X. This was a tricky one too because many people thought it would be under music. So let's look at that again. I want Apple's Logic Pro software. I'm a musician. I want to do Logic Pro. It's not here. Apple Music, AirPods, HomePod, iPod Touch, Beats. It's not here. It's an application you'd use on your Mac. So you have to think like Apple and say, it's a Mac. Okay, where did it go? I don't know. Where is Logic Pro? So where are Apple applications? Here we go, Pro Apps. But notice it wasn't even part of the hierarchy. So once I get here, I'm not even sure if I'm in the right place because nothing in, so here's our primary navigation, our top level navigation. Here's our second level of navigation. Nothing here tells us we're in the right place. So to me, this is an error in the information architecture and how it's displayed. I do not, yeah, Kayleen says IA is so much fun. It's really important, y'all. I'm wearing my polar bear shirt today. Read the polar bear book. So nothing here clues me in that I was going to find Logic Pro software here. To me, that's an information architecture mistake. It turns out it is here, but only if I had the patience and time to start scrolling down this and look for it to say, I had to scroll down past all of these devices to learn what I could do with the devices. Oh, look, Pro Apps, Logic Pro. Charlene says it's not just boxes and lines. It's not. So here we can see 7 people got it right. So I would consider this a 29% success, which is terrible. Again, people spent 40 seconds on this, which to me is unacceptable. He says, it really is. I'm reading Abby's book. Excellent. I think we met Abby in what, episode 104? So now let's take a look at one other thing that Optimal Workshop gives us before we wrap up. So if you have any last questions, ask them now. This is pretty much the last thing I'll show you from Optimal Workshop. Now, as we learned last time, there's 2 different ways to view this. This shows the path that people took. Green, and unfortunately, if you're colorblind, this isn't going to help, but green is the correct path that eventually people went the correct path, but nominated what was ended up being an okay answer. But I think it's the radial one that I prefer. I just feel like for me that works better, but if you like the other version, that's totally fine. E says, makes me feel like I'm Marie Kondoing digital products. You kind of are. Charlene and Kayleen say, have her back. I would, but she is eyebrow deep in writing her second book. So I promise when her second book is done and it's out, we'll invite her back and have her talk about her second book, which she is doing now. So here we can see what's going on. Now remember, I said you're curious about AirPods for your iPhone. I sent all these people to iPhone. Ooh-wee, 20 people were going on the wrong path, and we can see 14 of them said, uh-oh, I think I'm going down the wrong path because I can see now what the sub-choices are for iPhone. None of them say AirPods. I'm going to head out of here. So 20 people went in the wrong way, 14 people headed back. That means 6 people went deeper to try to see if it was somewhere in iPhone. They really believed in this. And then you can see, again, here's where we have our outliers. You can tell some people just gave up. Where would you think you would find AirPods? So the yellow ones are what people nominated as the answer. Online support, clearly that person gave up. Product red, gave up. iPhone 7, gave up. You know, so I think of these as people who gave up because they nominated an answer that clearly is not where you're going to find AirPods. Grace says, can we rewatch this live stream again? Is it saved on your channel? Absolutely. It's immediately archived on the channel, and I will go in after the stream is done and I will categorize it in the micro lessons playlist. So just a few minutes after the stream is done, you'll see it in the micro lessons playlist. But it will, it's always archived immediately. So you can share it, you can watch it again, you can comment on it, totally up to you. Okay, so you can see from the steely blue color where people turned back. Now, this used to be a darker blue color. I think that would have been more helpful. It's too close to this gray. I wish they would just let me pick my own colors, especially if I'm colorblind. But anyway, which I'm not, but many people are. So this shows me people went to Mac. Some people turned back. Now, music ended up being the correct path to go. But even so, some people, 20 people were eventually headed on the right path. And somebody actually went to music, AirPods overview, and 2 people turned back. Isn't that interesting? They just weren't confident that they had actually found the right place. So you can see, even when people ended up at the right place, they just weren't confident. This says so much to me. And this is where I say, oh my, our information architecture needs more work. Even people who ended up in the right place weren't confident. 2 people turned back. And we're like, is this where I go? Are you my mommy? So there's a lot of cool stuff that we can learn from the tree test, but mostly the tree test, like any other UX or usability test, is not a test of, is the user an idiot, or will the user eventually figure it out and have an indirect success? Remember, indirect success is, they'll eventually figure it out. To me, that's not good enough. I don't want anybody to have that negative experience. So for me, I would still go back and fix this. Apple did improve it. They put AirPods on more pages. And again, we could see from the pie chart, we have the pie tree, we can see where people thought AirPods were going to be. That's a clue of maybe where they should be. And again, we can see the pie tree for the Logic Pro software and say, hey, look at how many people went to music. And I didn't even, I used the word music here because I was worried people wouldn't know what it was, but you could say that was still leading. I led people right to music, and that's not where it was. And you can see even on their website today, that's not where it is. But to me, that doesn't make sense because to me, Logic Pro is a Mac application for music, for recording music and making music. I would think of it in music, but for whatever reason, that's not where Apple put it. And we've got 29 people who went down this path, 12 doubled back, a bunch of people nominated stuff here as their answer. But again, you can see these were desperate, I give up answers like, iTunes support and browse iTunes store. Browse App Store. I mean, browse App Store is not a bad answer. Eventually, if you browse the App Store, you might find an app called Logic Pro. But I think we can see that in some cases, people are just desperate and give up. And so the interpretation to me of a tree test is, what do I need to fix about my information architecture? So sorry we've run a little bit late, but let me know what any of your final questions are about any of the things that we've talked about, and I would be happy to answer them live before we end the stream. And let's see. So ask your questions, please, in the LinkedIn or YouTube chat. Charlene says, what if people just say they will use search instead of going through navigation? Great question. So I get that one a lot. People say, well, I'm just, people will just search. They're not going to use the navigation. Yeah, but if you check websites time and time again, we do use navigation. We do, especially if it's a site we haven't been on before. We're coming here and we're going, well, what's going on here? Where are the places I can go, and what are the sub places I can go? Sometimes people will just search, but to me, that's why you have to have a good navigation and a good search, or really a great navigation and a great search, because there are searchers and there are browsers. We have to accommodate both types of people. We can't just say, hey, it's okay if our searching sucks, we'll just have or our browsing sucks, people will search. Okay, now I'm going to search for Logic Pro. Logic Pro has its own page, but where does that live in the hierarchy? I can't even tell right now. It's very visually difficult. I believe this Mac is slightly gray and these are slightly white. Notice they get whiter when I hover. So someone thought that this was a visual cue that you're now in the Mac, part of this site. I don't think that is a strong enough difference for me to be able to see that's where I am. But, I couldn't tell you where in the hierarchy this is, because you would have to go Mac, and then you would have to know to scroll down and scroll down and scroll down past apps, because it's not an app, it's a pro app. So the problem is Apple expects us to think the way they do. They expect us to realize this isn't just an app, it's a pro app. And then, can I click on it? No, not clickable, not clickable. I would have to click Learn More About Logic Pro. So I think there just are some mistakes here, some IA mistakes and some interaction design mistakes. And Mamuzo is here, great to see you, says, thinking aloud, if there's a high-level nav option of accessories, wouldn't it be easier to access things like AirPods, Pencil, and so on? I think so, but let's take a look at how Apple did it. Store, Mac, iPad, iPhone, Watch, TV, Music, Support, Search, and I guess this is Shopping Basket. So where are accessories? You're totally right. You have to think of, what is this an accessory to? Here's accessories to Mac. iPhone. There's no accessories here. It's just AirPods. Evidently, that's it. Oh, here it is. Accessories, but it's got a different icon. Whoa. Okay. Accessories. What about iPad accessories? Accessories with a different icon. People. Apple Watch, do they have accessories? Yes, they do. And it's a hat. It does not look like a hat. Obviously, I guess that's a watch on like a watch box display unit. But I'm like, that's a lovely hat. That's like a 1920s straw hat. Hello, my baby. So I think there's some icon mistakes here. It'd be great if accessories were the same icon over and over so that you could start to really be familiar with them. We had to look each time. I think that's a mistake as well. Grace says, if Logic Pro is hard to find, is it because Logic Pro is not the main product that Apple sells? Charlene says it's a watch on a wireless charger. Okay, thank you. I've got an Android watch, so I wouldn't know what a watch on a Apple wireless charger looks like. Is it because a Logic Pro is not their main thing to sell? Well, why not? I'm not sure Logic Pro, is Logic Pro still a paid application? or do you get it for free? Learn more. Is this free or paid? Hello, cheese grater. Live loops. Remix. Will I ever learn what this costs? Anybody? So notice there's no call to act. I don't see call to actions like calls to action like download this fucking thing or buy it or, oh, here we go. Free trial and buy. So it's funny. These were up in the nav the whole time, but I was so busy looking at this other stuff. So free trial or buy. So Apple makes money when you buy Logic Pro. It's $200 American dollars. Is it a main product for Apple to sell? I don't know. It's quite popular. I don't know why it's so hidden. But I do think even though it was at the top, I'm still surprised that there weren't more calls to action throughout the content. Because once which one's going to attract your eye more right now? These two primary buttons. Why are they both primary? Why isn't one secondary? Or super happy rainbow of fruit flavors. Well, of course, I'm looking at this. I'm like, oh, shiny object. What's this? I totally wasn't looking at this. And then there were no calls to action here. There was no free trial or buy. And now I'm sucked into the content and I'm learning about what this is. And there isn't a free trial or a buy. And so I think that's a mistake. Charlene says, E says, I'm on a phone. I can't see that well. Yeah, it's a little hard. I'm on a giant TV. So, yeah, it's a little hard if you're on a phone. Charlene says, those buttons on the top always confuse me when I go through the Apple website. Yeah, I think we take for granted and we think that Apple must be doing everything right. But I think we've seen some examples today of where their information architecture could be better, their website navigation could be better, their use of primary and secondary buttons could be better, their use of color to indicate where you are in a hierarchy could be better, because I get the feeling that these are in-page links. So if I click, oh no, it's a separate page. So they're telling you that like this is slightly gray and this is almost white, but it's not totally. Oh, now this mouse is over to bluey purpley, bluey violety, but these mouse over to bright white. I don't know. This just feels inconsistent to me. Charlene says they have so much info and images with such small buttons. Yeah, something about it just seems inconsistent to me. Wow, this is a big block of blank space. I'm in a private browser, but still. Oh, I see. They think you're going to open these things and they left room for them? No, because I jumped down the page. I'm halfway down the page. Anyway, this wasn't meant to be a total poop on Apple adventure. But the idea is that we can test this stuff. And I can test the Apple hierarchy without sending people to the Apple website. I can test their current hierarchy. I can test a proposed hierarchy that I'm working on. That's another cool thing about card sorts and tree tests. You don't have to send people to a real website or a prototype or anything. You can just recreate the skeleton of what's going on and give people tasks related to that. Emma Muzo says, I think since data redundancy is not good for database schema design, we should try to avoid having one item appear in multiple places in a nav. What do you think? I think that it's more important to accommodate the user than database schema. And I think that modern database schema should allow for a one-to-many relationship. I mean, relational databases, y'all. So I think it's more important to be customer-centric and accommodate users' habits, perceptions, mental models, and put stuff where people expect to find it. Remember, the whole reason why my tricky stuff works so well is because the old Apple website had AirPods in one place. Music, AirPods, overview. And if you went to Mac or phone or something else, you didn't get AirPods at all. Congratulations, you had a nice tidy database schema, but you had people meeting the 4 horsemen of bad UX. So which one wins? Which one was better? I will always go for customer centricity over, gosh, that's going to take developers more time, or, database architecture. Hey, your database architecture needs to serve my users. That's how I feel. Fun with Sarah says their website doesn't seem to be accessible to people with visual difficulties. Yeah, I haven't run a whole accessibility check on Apple's site. There's certainly lots of black and white here, but I don't know how it works with a screen reader or people with other visual issues. I haven't checked, so I'm not going to comment on it right now, but it's certainly possible and worth a deeper look. So, if we don't have any other questions, I'll take it back to me. And of course, thank everybody for joining in the lesson. Look at the tip jar overflowing today. Thank you to everybody who did a super chat or a super sticker or a tip jar thing. Really appreciated, always optional, but always appreciated. Kayleen says, I was thinking about getting some sort of accessibility certification, but they seem more developer focused than UX focused. Not necessarily. If you go to, is it IACP or IAACP? I think they've got some certifications that don't necessarily assume you're a coder. So look into that. Charlene says, super cool. Thank you. Thank you. And it looks like, and again, check the coding and tagging one. See if that is enough or if you need me to do something more specific. Let's take a quick look at the calendar. And remember, you can always check out our upcoming events at deltacx.link/events. It's just a simple Google Calendar, but it will tell you what we have cooking. And let's see, Friday reaction stream. Monday, Julia DeBari will be here to talk about questions you should be asking during interviews. Fun with Sarah says, I was thinking about the menu where the color shows where you are on the site. Never shown important information with a color. Yeah, you know, we have to think about, did we make something a color language? And is it now more confusing than it's worth? Excuse me. Tuesday the 21st is office hours Ask Me Anything. Wednesday the 22nd, I'm not streaming. Friday the 24th, reaction stream. Monday the 27th, another fantastic panel on the realities of working in UX to help those who are new to UX know what it's really like to work in UX, which is mostly carnage and disaster. Charlene has her Nerf gun ready at all moments. Tuesday the 28th, office hours Ask Me Anything. Wednesday the 29th, yes, Bettina will be here and she's going to explain crypto and NFTs to us because holy cats, I don't get them at all. And after that, we're into October. So that is it for September. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. Thanks for energizing me. I always love presenting these and helping people out and teaching. If you have any ideas or suggestions on future micro lessons you'd like to see, drop me a note, drop a comment here, helps the algorithm. And you can also join the Slack channel and shoot something there in the live events Slack channel, which is where we talk about things that are going to be live on this channel here. And what else can I tell you? Press like and comment after the stream is over. Helps in the algorithm. And I have a challenge for everybody this week. Won't you please find 3 people who haven't heard of the Delta CX channel, who are interested in UX or already working in UX or maybe in CX or UI. Tell them about the Delta CX channel. It's totally free. They don't have to spend any money at all. And it could be the best not money they spend this year. So with that, I will play us out of here. Everybody, please remember to stay safe. It's still important to stay away. Oh, I love you too. Who's that? Thank you, E. I got a heart on my face. My system randomly puts your emoji somewhere on the screen, and so sometimes they're in silly places. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to our new members and subscribers and generous peeps like Kayleen. Thank you endlessly. And I will see everybody Friday for the reaction stream. So wear 3 masks, and I will see you soon. Thanks again. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are